and welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast. My name is Sam, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, it's Josh Bacon and Joe Roberts. How are you two doing?
I am doing great, thank you, Sam. How are you?
I am doing good. I bet you are, Josh. And how are you, Joe?
I'm doing good, thank you. Very, very, very happy today.
Yeah, I mean, we've got two McLaren fans here, so I bet you're both over the moon. We're here today for a Italian Grand Prix review, summing up all the big incidents, and there definitely were some today, and giving our opinion on them. But yeah, let's start where the weekend, not where it began, but the second part of the weekend. We had the sprint race for the second time this weekend. The first time being Britain, and then we all know in the race that there was a big incident, and that might have repeated as well. But let's talk about the sprint race at first. It's fair to say that Hamilton didn't get the start he wanted. Had an absolute nightmare. But apart from that, not much really happened with Gasly going into a wall, causing a safety car, which was quite unfortunate. And Kubica getting spun by Tsunoda. But guys, what do you think of the sprint race?
Pretty much, like you said, I think they said it on comms today and yesterday that it was a bit dull. There wasn't much overtaking or any changes in positions, and they also mentioned how they think, well, actually maybe not directly in the comms, but they should rethink what tracks they use sprint. So they should probably think about ones where cars can actually overtake more easily, instead of using just a slipstream of Monza. But yeah, it was still good. Still some people made up places. Like I think Russell and Latifi made up a few places, and obviously when Bottas won and went down to the back of the grid for the start on Sunday, it made everyone go up a place. But yeah, it was all right, but not as exciting as the race.
Yeah, I have the opinion that I think the sprint race was pretty dull, but I think the new generation of cars will improve the sprint race around Italy, especially. I think around Silverstone, for example, I think we're just lucky that I wouldn't say it was exciting, the Silverstone, and I think it was the same as Italy. I think it's just due to the fact that you had drivers making moves that will make it exciting. I think it was this time, was it? Not Alonso. I think it was Alonso. I can't remember. There's one driver did loads of moves, like in the midfield and that. So I think that was the positive side of it around, this weekend. But I think also the fact that McLaren hold out Lewis Hamilton when Norris got him on the and also Ricciardo on the line. So I think that helped the sprint race. But apart from that, I think, again, I think the new generations of cars will improve it. But as Josh said, I think there needs to be certain tracks that use this formula, because it could be just there'll be changes in mid, like 2 or 3 changes in the midfield, and then 1 up front where it should put everything on its head. Maybe an idea will have a tire that they have to nurture, like the F2 do, that there's like certain temperature range, I think, in the F2 sprint race. If people here watch it, as in they have to nurture it, or they can go guns blazing and then nurture at the end. I think that will be a way to spice up the sprint race. But apart from that, it was just a bit dull.
Yeah, you mentioned the next generation cars, and of course we've done 2 of the sprint races so far, so in Britain and Monza. We've got 1 more to go. Do you think this is something that they carry on into next season? You know, the next season, the next generation of cars, of course, are meant to be running a lot closer, which is supposed to make overtaking easier. So do you think this is an idea, guys, that should continue into next season, or do you think they should just leave it? It was an interesting experiment, but it didn't work. So what do you guys think of that?
Sorry, I'm going to be quite quick, Josh. So apologize. I think there's the format. I think it's fine. Maybe put qualifying and the sprint race on the same day would probably spice it up even more. I think that make it qualifying crucial, because that's the first day running on the cars. Maybe put practice 1 and 2, but again, you don't know the logistics of that. But for me, I think the format is fine. It's just the generation of cars, and the generation of cars, as you said, Sam, will make the cars follow. So if that happens, Monza wouldn't be a problem. The problem would be, I can only see, is the slipstream trains. But yeah, if they can close the slipstream trains to you have to be within a second or a second and a half, I think that be a positive step, because I remember Norris saying it was something, or one of the commentators saying it's like 6 seconds, something stupid like that. So I think if they get rid of that slipstream effect, I think it'll be a very good move.
Yeah, I think the format is as good as it is now, but I think for next season, because everything's so new, obviously the whole change of cars and all that stuff, but I think they should carry on trialing it next season. So don't do it at every race to completely change the whole calendar. But I think they do it similarly to what they're doing now, and just see if it works more effectively when the new cars and the new regulations come in. So I think keep doing what they're doing now, but just do it next season as well. So you at least get a trial period and see if it works or if it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I think there's some good answers. Let's move on to the race day, Sunday, today, that we're filming and recording, but of course that'll be yesterday when this comes out. It was a bit of a nightmare for AlphaTauri. I mean, even before, of course, they had their problems on Saturday, but then on Sunday, before the race, Sonoda had a brake problem and unfortunately couldn't take part in the race. So that's one AlphaTauri out of the race already before it's begun. We then had a brilliant start to the race. Giovinazzi got spun by Leclerc on lap 1 after re-entering the track dangerously, causing a VSC. But there was loads of drama. Hamilton had a great start and a lot of cars got away well. But yeah, of course, VSC and a 5-second penalty for Giovinazzi after getting spun by Leclerc, but it was his fault re-entering the track dangerously. And then misery compiler for AlphaTauri, as they couldn't even get past lap 5 as Gasly had to retire with a suspension problem, which is a shame because they'd just signed new deals. I'm pretty sure I said in my predictions that they were going to have a stellar weekend. They're going to get double points because, you know, they're free of the logistics of contract talks. They're free of all that pressure about whether they're going to have a seat next year. And unfortunately, neither car made it past lap 5. So that wasn't ideal. The first talking point is lap 15. Ocon pushing Vettel onto the grass and handed a 5-second penalty. Of course, this compromised Vettel's race so much, and he got compromised by a lot of other things. But this is something that, yeah, he kind of ruined his race. 5-second penalty. Do you think that's a fair thing? Because it did ruin his race.
Yeah, I think it's fair. He definitely lost quite a few positions as a result of what Ocon did. So there's not really much to say about it. It was forced off onto the grass or the gravel and just had to slow down to try and stay on the track, which meant the cars behind him, I think 2 or 3 overtook him. So yeah, it was a bit of a unfortunate situation for Vettel. But yeah, I think 5 seconds was the right decision.
Yeah, I completely agree with Josh. I think Vettel today probably go deeper in the analysis of Aston Martin, but I think he just got absolutely bullied by I think lap 1, I think he got caught in an incident which wasn't his fault. I think there could have been a penalty, and then obviously Ocon just misjudging the distance between Vettel's car and then the edge of the track. So I think, yeah, it was a clear penalty, but yeah, it's just how it is.
Yeah, someone needs to sell Vettel some PPI. Have you been caught in an accident that wasn't your fault? But that was a terrible joke. Let's move on to the big incident of the day, the big talk point. Everyone has an opinion on it. Everyone has a different opinion on it. And of course, Joe has been foreshadowing it for weeks. He said Hamilton and Verstappen are going to collide. He's been saying it he's basically said it
I
as
didn't say for this race.
You
Well,
didn't, this is the first race in so long where you haven't gone, they're going to collide and knock each other out. But you've been saying it for a while, and that's what happened. Hamilton and Verstappen collided at turn 2, which was a really nasty accident, actually. It wasn't necessarily at high pace, but Verstappen's car ended up going over Hamilton. Without the halo, he probably would have sustained serious injury, maybe even died. So big up the halo. What a brilliant thing that was, despite a lot of drivers didn't want it at first, but it saved countless lives. That's brilliant. After the race, the stewards have deemed that Verstappen was at fault and have given him a 3-place grid penalty. Some people think it's Lewis, but not many. A lot of people say racing incident, and about another large amount think it's Max's fault. I want to get your guys' opinion, because even the pundits couldn't agree. I mean, Johnny Herbert, I thought, was going to actually scrap Felipe Massa after the race.
And Paul di Resta, honestly.
Paul di Resta, he was fuming. He just couldn't believe they couldn't agree on their opinion. Him and Damon Hill were sitting on the high hill of, we are the experience. Then these two young guys, well, moderately young guys, Paul di Resta and Felipe Massa, disagreed. But yeah, guys, what do you think of the big incident of the weekend?
Josh, you want to go first, or
if you've got nothing to say, I'll happily go first. But
I just don't know how long my explanation is going to be.
Oh, yeah. You go. It's fine.
It's quite hard, because you look at it, and yes, you can look at even from looking at an F1 game point of view, where I know it's quite a naive looking at it, but if you gotta go into that corner like that, you always gotta back out and go over the curbs, because the curb will hit you and you get the front wing damage in the F1 games. Obviously, this is real life and not F1 virtual games. But for me, Lewis went, as I agree with Massa, the fact that Lewis should have went over across more to pin Verstappen so he couldn't make the move. But I agree with Damon Hill or more Johnny Herbert, because the fact that what Damon Hill said next, I think it's quite extreme, that Lewis, because it's a pinch point, because the nature of that corner, you can't, it's very hard to leave space or judge if there's space because of the way the corner goes. You have to go a lot, you have to steer out a bit, and obviously Lewis just didn't know he was there and thought he backed out. So I would make it a 60% Max's fault, because the fact that he could have backed out, very similar, I would say, as Johnny Herbert said to Silverstone, that Lewis could have backed out, and that for me was still 60-40. The one thing that is interesting about this, which I don't know, I want to get your guys' opinion on it, is it a very tactical foul, as I think it was Toto Wolff was saying, as in, for me, it's slowly, the way that Red Bull have been operating, it is getting to a point where I do think it is getting a tactical foul, as I think I think we'll put a picture up of what Lewis Hamilton, where the wheel is like, as I'm looking on my screen now, the wheel's sitting on top of his halo. It's just amazing how the halo's been, and I wasn't really advocated of it, but yeah, for me, it was Verstappen's fault. if you look at the way that the stewards have said their decision, as I think Sam will read them out when he says your turn, but as you would say, but yeah, the one thing I would say is that they need to, the FIA need to be careful on not making it, as Johnny Herbert would say, banger racing. And I think they've done that by putting the penalty in.
You done? You good? You got all your points across?
Well, the other thing is about the halo. It's about the halo. I wasn't a big advocate for it just because I've watched this sport since 2007, and I didn't like the fact that it's meant to be seen as open cockpit. But I'm very glad because where the wheel is placed on Lewis Hamilton's head, and apparently had a sore neck, I think it would have killed him. So I think that's a testimony to the regulations and the safety in F1. I am done now, Josh.
Right, I'll try and keep it a little bit shorter than Joe, but I'm pretty much in agreement with what he says. But just to add to it in regards of the actual penalty that was given to Verstappen, I think they've chosen or given out a wise penalty, because if you look back to Silverstone, and like Joe was saying, Hamilton should have backed out, and then obviously for this one, Verstappen should have backed out. Obviously, it was they did the decision at Silverstone in the middle of the race, so they could give a 10-second or a time penalty instead of a grid penalty, because the race was still going along. So if you look at it from the point of, they waited until after the race because they were both crashed out at this point, and the only logical penalty, if they were going to give one, was a grid penalty. And I think 3 places is a substantial amount, because it probably just about relates to 3 places, maybe a little bit less. But I think they've done well, the FIA, in making the right decision in regards to how to make the penalties fair between the similar positions from Silverstone and obviously today in Monza. But yeah, most of the points that Joe said, I think I'm in agreement with. But I'm just not sure about if it was a tactical foul. I don't want to. You just can't comment on it because you don't know what he's thinking, and you don't know. You're not a driver. You're not in a situation. You don't know what you'd do in that situation. But neither of them are going to back down. So I don't think you can say it's a tactical foul. But I can obviously see why people have that opinion, because they believe he should have backed out. He should have taken the escape road or over the curbs. But he's a racing driver. He's not going to do that. He's been told to stay on the track. He's fighting for his first world championship. So I don't think he was ever going to back down. But obviously, I can see why both arguments are being argued.
Yeah, just to clarify, I don't think it's a tactical foul. I'm just saying what Damon Hill and Toto Wolff was saying, and I don't know if Johnny Herbert was saying that in the Sky like pundits. I don't believe that it's a tactical foul, because it's actually like extreme terms. That's like, obviously, I don't Senna and Prost moment when in Japan. That it's not like that. It could get to a point where it's like that if it's like ridiculously close, like the last race. Then I don't know what you do, but yeah.
And there we go. Is it a tactical foul? Let us know in the comments. But yeah, it's an interesting one, because you mentioned there, Josh, that Verstappen's not going to back down because he's a racing driver. But then how many times has Lewis gone over the curbs this year to avoid Max because he's realised that he's not going to make it? I mean, even in this race, like lap 1, he went over the curbs because Max squeezed him and didn't give him room. So it's not a tactical foul, which was being banded around, but it was. I think that Max could have probably avoided it. It was definitely more Max's fault than Lewis's. Lewis could have given more room though, and I still believe that. But Max should have 100% aborted going for that move. I understand he had the momentum, but at the end of the day, the space wasn't there. He was never going to make a move stick, and he's taken him and his title rival out, which has actually kind of worked advantageously to Red Bull, because now they can go to Sochi, take an engine penalty because they're down places anyway, and they just basically have been waiting for an opportunity in the season to get to use it, and now Sochi provides a good opportunity for that. So not a tactical foul, more Max's fault than Lewis's. Joe,
Sam, can I just say something about, sorry, the button about the engine penalty. I think if they take it in Sochi, the way the McLarens have been performing, they could easily be stuck behind them the same that they did as the Mercedes were around Italy, and maybe the Ferraris. That's why I personally don't think it would be smart to take it around Sochi.
Yeah,
just my opinion on it.
Yeah,
sorry,
I don't.
Sorry to butt in on
It's fine. I mean, Sochi isn't a track with brilliant overtaking. We'll do a preview for it, of course, but they wanted to take a penalty after something's happened or something. So I feel like getting a 3-place grid penalty, they might as well do it at Sochi. But yeah, as I was saying, I personally think it was a racing incident, because the more the stewards butt in and be like, yep, that's a penalty or something, the more that drivers aren't going to go for moves, because they're going to be like, oh, I might get penalised for this. Because sometimes you do a dive bomb and it actually comes off. Not a lot of the time, not all the time, definitely. But you dive bomb and it just looked, and you're like, what a move. But it's getting to a point now where the FIA, you're just going to be like, if you're the driver, you're looking at it going, I could try this. It could be amazing. But if it goes wrong, I'm getting a second and I'm not getting appreciated. It's not getting appreciated that I'm just trying to race. So I think that penalties given out way too much. I think that Lewis at Silverstone was a racing incident and he shouldn't have got penalised. I think that Max here also shouldn't get penalised, even though it's probably more his fault than Lewis's. But let me read you what the stewards thought. And to be honest, right, as much as I thought it was a racing incident, I think their explanation is good. Buckle in, because it's going to take a while of reading and a lot of umming and ahhing, because I can't read.
Popcorn.
Here we go. The stewards observed on CCTV footage that the driver on car 44 was driving an avoiding line, although his position caused car 33 to go onto the curb. But further, the stewards observed that car 33 was not at all alongside car 44 until significantly into the entry into turn 1. In the opinion of the stewards, this manoeuvre was attempted too late for the driver of car 33 to have the right to racing room, while car 44 could have steered further from the curb to avoid the incident. The stewards determined that the position was reasonable and therefore find that the driver of car 33 was predominantly to blame for the incident. In coming to the penalty, the stewards emphasised that they have only considered the incident itself and not the consequences therefore, which is a good thing, because realistically, you need to judge the thing, not if Lewis had been hospitalised, for example. It would be dumb if they'd upped it to 10 seconds, for example, because it's like you need to look at the incident instead of what came about after the incident. So, to be honest, I think the explanation was interesting. I thought it was a good explanation, but I still stand by racing incident. Let's move on to the Haas drivers. We'll talk about Hamilton and Verstappen a bit later again anyway. We talk about them every week, mainly one of them, and he might be from Russia, and he might be called Nikita Mazepin. He divides opinion. No, he doesn't. Everyone hates him. Realistically, he doesn't divide opinion. He just loves taking Schumacher out. He just doesn't like him at all. And that happened on lap 33. He sent Schumacher spinning round. and he got awarded a 5-second penalty. Now, getting a 5-second penalty isn't good, but getting a 5-second penalty for spinning your teammate is different levels of dumb. They were at the back. Who cares? You're coming last, lads. It doesn't even matter. The Williams, who at the start of the season were rubbish, and now so much better. They've developed their car. Fair play to them. Russell and Latifi, I'll give credit to as well, are pushing it. The Haas are rubbish. They just don't even deserve to be in the sport. Get someone like Carlin and they'll probably do a better job. Honestly, it's so bad. But I've got off on a tangent. Let's talk about the actual incident at hand. I mean, what can we even talk about? Mazepin is such an idiot, isn't he?
You know what? I'm gonna quickly just slightly defend Mazepin for the first time here. But you said that obviously from our point, that we don't see a point in them fighting for 19th and 20th place because they're just going to be there every week anyway. But if you were them, a good week for you is beating your teammate. So you would, and if any chance you get, you'd fight them, you'd battle them, you'd want to be ahead of them because for that week you then get the pride, or you just then look the better teammate on that day. But then obviously, if you look at the incident, his stupidity just comes across. Honestly, how bad he is. I just don't understand how he can be in the sport, except for the money that his dad or whoever it is brings to Haas. But yeah, I think just a slight defence is that obviously for them it's all they can fight for, so they're going to fight and show their ability, and that's the only place that they can show their ability. But with the incident, it was just stupid. He pretty much didn't brake in time, just hit the back of his team like he didn't care. Just spun him around, just drove off, and probably waved at him as he went by. Like, I don't give two hoots about you. Just a slight defence of what you said. But yeah, it was a bit stupid from him in the first place.
I'm going to butt in against this defence and just. He's admitted, fair enough, a good weekend for him beating his teammate. But the moves he's pulling out to beat his teammate are genuinely going to properly hurt him at some point. In Zandvoort, we saw him almost put him in the pits. I mean, it's every move he does. He hits him constantly. I know a good weekend for him is beating your teammate, whatever. But you've got to be a team player. You heard Lando Norris today. He asked the team, can I go for a move? They said no. He went, okay. Because at the end of the day, he said in his interview, he's here for the long term. He's a team player. Mazepin is not a team player. Mazepin only cares about himself. He tries to end Mick Schumacher's race at every instance he can. It's like he has some grudge against him. I honestly don't understand. He really annoyed me today because I've had enough, to be honest. I've completely had enough of him. He's going to be in the sport for such a long time. He's going to be in the sport for so long because his dad has money. And it's not like Lance Stroll, because when Lance Stroll came to the sport, at least he showed bits of ability. Admittedly, he was so, he just was reckless and he wasn't that great, but over time he's developed. Mazepin isn't going to develop into anything. At best, he could go for Alfa Romeo, and that's if he is properly good. He is terrible. He's a horrible person. He doesn't belong in the sport. He doesn't belong in Formula 2. He doesn't belong in racing. He belongs just at home, just with his dad, just, I don't even know, making money, because he's a disgrace and I'm not happy. Joe, what do you think of the incident?
Are you finished? Because I think it's about time. Joe,
honestly,
I'm sorry, I was just looking up and see if Haas confirmed the lineup yet, but
no, they haven't.
Well, I thought I was gonna go a bit deep into hating Mazepin, and I am. I think Mazepin was waving and clapping Max and Lewis when they both crashed out, saying, "Oh, brilliant banger racing there," and then does it to his teammate. He just, as Josh said, waving to him. It was brilliant stuff. Well, as it was, Mazepin's just treating F1 like it's banger racing or
bumper cars.
bumper cars or like really aggressive NASCAR. I don't know. He just seems ignorant. He's a bit thick-headed. I think he's a bit dumb in the way he chooses decisions of like racing, who he should race. I don't think you should race your teammate when you're stuck in the back of the grid with a very crap car. Mick Schumacher, Mick Schumacher is probably saying, I want to get out. I want to go to Alpha and be with Bottas, who's just a very, well, being from Finland, so he's very, very calm. I think whoever's get that Haas, well, seats, it looks like one of them is fighting. I think they got somebody lined up and the other is fighting for their seats, because that's how it looks from how Mazepin's driving and wanting to just say, I don't know if Mazepin's leading Mick Schumacher and the drivers. He isn't. He's probably trying to.
Kubica is leading. Kubica is ahead of Mazepin in the standings.
I think Mazepin's only beat Schumacher like twice or 3 times because of today, but yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, he's dangerous to the sport. He's going to end up taking drivers out. He's going to end up even blue flags, the worst thing ever for like a person leading. He's going to end up taking Max or Lewis out, or Bottas or Perez if he's performing well. I think it is kind of tarnishing Mick Schumacher's I'm not going to say ability, because that's kind of harsh words, but I think his reputation in the fact that it looks like he's making the mistakes or he's not driving the car correctly, when he's a fantastic driver. He's sons of one of the best in the sport, and he's getting absolutely mugged off by Mazepin, who just intends just to hit him every single sight of a Haas, as Sam says, his teammate. So I don't know how harsh or how critical words you could put without making it not PG, but yeah, I'm trying to use my words very correctly here. But it's as Sam says, I'm starting to get enough. I think if he ends up hitting his home race, Russia, even though he doesn't have the Russian flag because of the doping scandal in Russia, I hope he crashes out.
Oh, fair enough. I respect it. I mean, the people thought that Danny Torpedo Kvyat was bad. They thought this Russian's a lunatic. And then this guy's coming to the sport and he just doesn't listen to blue flags. He tries to kill his teammate every week. He's losing in the championship to Kubica, who's raced 2 races. And and luckily Mazepin DNF today, which I cheered as much as Ricciardo winning. But I would also like to add that at the start of the season, I did back him and said he'd get a point because he's wacky and because I thought he would just dive bomb his way to a points. And
sorry.
And I did. I haven't hated him this entire season. I have tried so hard to be impartial and to not rage at him every race. But it's getting to a point now where I'm so bored of it. Like, I know everyone's like, oh, Schumacher's golden boy. And admittedly, I've criticised him as well. He puts it in the wall. He started the season by putting it in the wall a lot. But Mazepin, he just drives me insane, and I don't really know what to say. What were you going to say, Joe?
I found strong words for it, that he's probably the worst driver I've seen in F1. I think period. He's the worst driver in F1. I can't as in, there's been bad F1 drivers, but there hasn't been extremely woeful. As in, the only one I can think of is the legendary name of the F2 driver that
Ranganathan.
Yeah, as in
Mohammed.
he's awful. But Mazepin is on another level in F1. He's that level. And that is, I can't, as in, if anybody knows, if put down in the comments or like, it is, I can't think of anyone. I can't think of any worse a driver than Mazepin.
Karun Chandok was pretty bad. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
but but he didn't clash with his teammate. And also, Sam, he was HRT.
Yeah,
which
woeful.
I know it wasn't the car that didn't have any fuel. It was just an awful car.
Yeah.
And the Haas is a better car than the HRT.
Miraculously.
I mean, let's move on.
I mean, the dog in Josh's room right now, Ferb's a better driver than Mazepin. So that's a lovely.
You noticed.
Lovely little appearance from Ferb there. But yeah, let's move on to the final incident, the race I want to talk about before we go into our team by team breakdown, and that is lap 38. To do with my boy Checo Perez, and he got wrongly given a penalty for no reason at all. So we had an incident where Perez and Leclerc was going into a corner where at the start of the race, Hamilton and Verstappen had a thing where Verstappen pushed him, gave him no room, and Hamilton decided to go over the corner because that's what you meant to do. But Max, take notes. But yeah, he went over the corner. Perez was in front going into the corner. He was in front, but he went over the corner, and stewards argued he gained an advantage and gave him a 5-second penalty. What do you think about that, guys?
He was in front because he was going too fast and he couldn't slow down in time to make the corner. Hence why he has to go over the curbs, gaining an advantage and then staying in front. If you then look to a lap or two later, I don't remember who it was, but there were two drivers. Who was it?
It was Bottas and Perez.
Or was it the same people?
Yeah.
I think two laps later, it was at the same corner, and another driver did the same thing, but this time he actually gave the position back. He did it straight away as well instead of holding on to it. But then I think the penalty was deemed correct. But then I know you haven't mentioned it yet, but I do also agree that the FIA, they should have said something to the Red Bull before giving him a penalty. But I think because it's just probably common knowledge within the sport, they just thought that they would just give the position back anyway. But I think the penalty was justifiable, but there could have been more done to then make it seem more right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not actually agree with Josh with the FIA should have done it quicker. I think it's just Red Bull trying to be quite cheeky and deservedly getting that 5-second penalty when they should have knew, like in the sprint, that when he did it, that he should have give it back. Personally, I think in the sprint he should have got a penalty because he didn't give it back quick enough. I don't know if you guys remember that, if you watched the sprint. But yeah, he should have given that back quick enough because then he overtook, I think it was Stroll on the next straight. So it gained an advantage, in my opinion. Again, it's just, I honestly do not get Red Bull's pit wall. When you cut a chicane, like I think he did on turn 2 at one point and didn't give it back. He then did it again on turn 4, which one was the sprint, and in the race, they didn't give it back. The FIA, I'm not going to say, oh, you should give that back, go on the radar, you should give that back, because it's like knowledge in the sport. I think throughout the whole entire time it's been, like the recent era F1, that if you go off the track and overtake off the track, you give it back. And for me, it's the Red Bull fault. And Sam, if you trying to defend this,
he's boiling up here. He's got so much anger he's about to.
I think it's a very naive. If you don't think this should have been a penalty.
Right. Well, I am Sergio Perez's lawyer, so let me get to work. Admittedly, he did cut the corner, gaining advantage. And to be honest, I'm not even arguing the 5-second penalty was wrong, because I don't think I think the 5-second penalty was pretty fair. My problem is, however, right, the Red Bull pit wall at the time when basically asked the FIA, does he have to give the position back? They didn't respond. So they were like, just stay in your position. So they weren't, I don't think the FIA were, and then the next thing they know is giving them a 5-second penalty. They weren't like, their communication was poor. They should have communicated better. Admittedly, you may say it's common sense, but when you're racing at that speed, sometimes like you're not really thinking about punishments. And what I would like to say, let me use an analogy. It's a different one to one I used beforehand. But for example, if I had a boiler problem and I phoned up whoever works with boilers, engineer, I don't really know what they're called. But yeah, if you phone them up and you go, listen, my boiler's not working. What do I need to do to sort it out? Then they just don't respond. You're not going to know what to do with your boiler. So how was he meant to know? So he'd have just done nothing, because you don't want to fiddle with it. You don't want to fiddle with the boiler. Could get even worse, you know? You could do something else. You want to leave it. You're going to leave it until they respond to you. And then you get a phone call later and say your boiler is about to explode, and then you're all dead. It's
Sam,
terrible.
Sam.
No,
that's worse than the maths one, because I can somewhat at the same point of this going off the track and gaining an advantage. It's literally pretty much an unwritten rule which everyone knows about, and then you're comparing it to a boiler where the person where house where it's broken just hasn't got a clue about anything of any of it. I don't understand your analogy.
Sam. So if you want to use a football analogy, I think I'll let make sure Josh helps me out on this one. So if a player gets injured, for example, as in Josh says, there's an unwritten rule that you kick the ball out of play.
This is a better analogy.
Do you either, as in, basically run and score a goal and make it unsportsmanlike, or do you kick the ball out of play and you, as in this terms, lose the advantage? And I can give an example of Leeds versus Aston Villa in the Championship when that happened.
Best league in the world. There we carry on.
I don't understand your point there. It's a rule that's put there for sportsmanship, and also the rules behind it.
Joe's got you there, Sam, mate. There's no arguing that.
To be fair, though, you guys are saying it's an unwritten rule in F1. It's actually a written rule in F1. To be fair, you should give the place
better for us.
I literally said earlier the 5-second penalty was fair. I just think the FIA weren't clear enough, and their communication was poor, and that potentially was harsh to then be like a team asking, what should we do? They'd be like, we don't know. Or say, we'll get back to you. And then they get back to you and be like, right, here's a penalty.
So let's move on from this.
I think I've made some good points. Your
analogies of boilers, rather than put it into a sporting context, is very weird.
Listen, the listeners, all 5 of them, right, are gonna they're gonna relate 100%. But let us move on, probably for the better. This has been a really tangenty podcast. The final incident was, we're not actually going to talk about it, but it was lap 44. Mazepin broke down the side of the track. VSC. Woo! Way!
Worst driver of all time.
Yeah. Ranganathan's better. He test drive for Alfa Romeo. He's better than you. Test drive for a better team than you. That was good. Let's move on to our team by team breakdown. It's taken us a while to get to it, but we're here eventually. Let's start off.
We're going to fly through
Yeah,
it.
we're going to fly through it. Mercedes, Red Bull. Not really much to talk about as two cars DNF. We've talked about that. And Bottas and Perez.
What can I say something about Bottas? As in,
I mean-
I know you're probably gonna.
I mean, Joe, this is the bit where I ask you.
Can we
about-
talk about it? Yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask you first, flipping it. You're jumping the gun a bit. Mercedes, of course, getting 18 points this weekend. Red Bull getting 12 because they get the extra points. Because Verstappen got points despite not finishing because he came second in the sprint. Bottas won the sprint, 3 points. Let's talk about Mercedes and Red Bull. How do you compare their weekends? This is the bit, Joe, where you talk about Bottas because I've asked you about the team that Bottas is in.
All right, Sam. I get it. I thought you were gonna move on to like the other teams because we want to fly through this quickly. I'll keep my things short. I think Bottas has basically shown why he should be in F1 with that P3 and brilliant performance.
Yeah.
Perez.
Joe has said pretty much everything about Bottas. I'll go on to that later because he's my driver of the day. If Perez, decent race, moving up, I think he started 8th, moving up to 3rd, but then obviously with penalty moved down to 5th. But still, we showed the car had pace and his ability to get through the field. But other than that, there's not much to talk about.
Yeah. That's why I didn't talk about him.
Well, we really are going to speed through this, flipping it. Let's talk about the next two teams we're going to move on to, who surely we're going to talk a bit more about. McLaren and Ferrari. There we go. You two are McLaren fans. You must be over the moon. I'm not. But no, I was very happy. Let's talk about the McLaren first. Ricciardo second to first and winning faster lap, had an amazing race. Norris, big team player today, 3rd to 2nd. Then you got the Ferrari, who had low expectations anyway. I actually feel that they performed pretty well, bearing in mind that their car doesn't suit the track. Leclerc 5th to 4th, Sainz 6th to 6th. Guys, McLaren, Ferrari, how do you compare this battle this weekend?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you of what you said about Ferrari. They had a pretty decent weekend for what I was expecting because obviously their car doesn't really suit the track, but somehow they seem to find some sort of pace to stay pretty close to the top 4, top 5 at some points. But it was good points for Ferrari. It's just a shame from their view for McLaren to have an incredible race to get 1-2 and pull away in the constructors. But I'm happy for Danny Rick. Definitely deserves. I'm disrupted again. Definitely deserves the win. He's shown what he can do, his ability in that car. And then obviously I was a bit disappointed because obviously I'm a massive Lando fan, and to hear them say no, don't fight him for the win, stick with P2, which is fair enough because they want P1 and P2, and I think them battling would have caused possibly Perez and Bottas to join the fight. But yeah, strong weekend, couldn't go any better, and I'll move on to Joe.
Oh well, I'm probably gonna get a bit emotional here, as in it's 8 years, Jenson Button 2012, the last time
9 years.
won.
9 years.
9 years. I need to get my maths correct. Sam, you ruined that.
We're in a moment, he's gonna cry.
Yeah.
I can't
9
let you
years,
say it's
Jenson
8 years
Button
when it's 9.
in Interlagos, Brazil. Yeah, it was the last win, then the last double podium for McLaren is 2010. I forgot which. Canada, Hamilton and Jenson Button. So yeah, it's for me 8 years of waiting.
9.
8 years of 9 years of 9 years of Honda engine, Mercedes engine, and then the Renault engine, I think, and then back to the mighty Mercedes. I think as a McLaren fan, I think it's been a long struggle. It's been hard watching, I would say, Jenson Button's talent go to waste. Perez being shocking. Magnussen doing woeful. Alonso carrying Alonso and Button carrying the team. Short stint with Van Dorn doing rubbish.
I am going to quickly button and defend Stoffel Van
No,
Dorn.
move on.
And yeah, and Sainz and Norris carried on the fight and did very well. And I think for me, Ricciardo deserves this. Going back to today's race, I think Ricciardo deserved this. Really struggled this season, and very happy for the win. And obviously, with the driver that I support this season, Norris, very happy for him. Yeah, it's a long time coming, and it shows the progress of the team. And I think there is a progression there that McLaren could win a championship very, very soon.
Anything on Ferrari?
Oh yeah, Ferrari, I think solid job. They're on the rise, and next time I diss their engine, I should shut my mouth.
I told you, Joe, they're competing with McLaren this season. I told you at the start of the season, but I'm going to defend Stoffel Van Dorn quickly. To be fair, when he was in the car was absolutely rubbish, and he was getting compared to Alonso the whole time, who is a champion, F1 champion. So I think he was harshly judged, and he probably did deserve another stint in F1 with a different team. But that's my defending out the way. People are too critical on Stoffel Van Dorn. Let's move on to the midfield battle. I don't really know who's in the midfield battle anymore, to be honest. As Josh shuts the door because Ferb's having a
honestly so frustrating today. It's so annoying.
He really is coming with
Orlando.
Main character energy.
He wants to get involved. He's just so happy with McLaren. So
yeah, he is celebrating. But yeah, howling away. It's quite unbelievable. He's singing his lungs out.
You won't stop. You won't stop.
Can you shut the door, Josh?
My door is shut.
Oh, amazing. It's just echoing around. It's quite a bark. But let's talk about AlphaTauri, Aston Martin and Alpine, who I'm not really sure if they are the midfield, to be honest, because Williams might even be in that now, which is weird to say. Bear in mind at the start of the season, they were terrible. But let's just talk about those three teams because of the fact that Williams are still classing with Alfa Romeo, even though that's pretty unfair. So AlphaTauri, nightmare today. Not really much you could say. Double DNF, Tsunoda DNFing before they started. And in the sprint race, Tsunoda decided he was going to take out Robert Kubica, who literally did nothing to him. So that was really mean. Aston Martin, Vettel got absolutely just really unlucky today. Stroll was brilliant. Alpine, Alonso's amazing as always, and Ocon got a point which should have been Latifi's point, but he only got a 5-second penalty for killing Vettel. So, guys, what do you think?
You said it all.
Yeah, I think Sam, you basically shortened that down to a very small section. The one thing I would say about Alpine is that they're I think they're leading the midfield. Aston Martin, they just got bullied today by other cars. And then the AlphaTauri, what looked very promising, just ended up falling by the Italian wayside.
Yeah, that's fine. My summary was so good that I might as well just do it my own, shouldn't I? I should just do the podcast, just talk it, just something.
Oh no, there's more to talk about Williams and Alfa Romeo. There's nothing.
Oh, here we go. I'm looking forward to the discussion. The point you're going to bring is Josh has gone AWOL. For the audio listeners, Josh has left. I feel like I'm doing a commentary right now. Josh has left to sort his dog out. He's just going to strangle him, so he can't make any more noise.
RSPCA will be around.
Yeah, I know that's a bit awkward. But while Josh has gone, Joe, how have you been? Oh no, he's back. The small talk is not needed. I'm going to not even edit this. This is incredible content. Let's move on. He's still going. He doesn't care. It didn't work. Whatever you did, Josh. Let's talk about Alfa Romeo and Williams. Kubica and Giovinazzi for Alfa Romeo. Kubica doing the best he could, and Giovinazzi very unlucky, even though he was a bit of an idiot. Then Russell getting points, which I I don't actually think half the people who watched the race actually realised, because no one actually made a fuss about it, which is actually a really great job. And Latifi was so close to points, but got really unlucky with the safety car. Let's talk about Alfa Romeo and Williams, which Joe says he has a lot to say about it. So I'm looking forward to this.
I'm not. This is actually quite spoiled. I'm not criticising Latifi this week, which. Yeah, as in I used to crucify him like Mazepin, but I think he's as soon as he got his first point, he's got the confidence back from his F2 days, and he's performing really well for Williams now. Maybe not. I think he well, I'm not going to say in the sprint because for me it's not qualifying, but qualifying in the on Friday, I think did he out qualify Russell?
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, so really good job. And then Russell, solid. Reason why he deserves to be in the Mercedes seat next season. Alfa Romeo, again, Robert Kubica, nice to see him back in the car. An absolutely brilliant drive, I would say, because Italy is quite a tough track. And then Giovinazzi was an utter idiot at the start. I would say he was brilliant at the start until he wanted to turn into Sainz and spun. And then I don't know where he finished. I think he just finished down the leaderboard.
13th.
13th. So, yeah, it's the reason why I still, Sam will have to convince me that he will get this seat for 2022.
He's getting better. He is actually improving.
He's good in qualifying, a qualifying hero, as like George Russell is, but doesn't back it up in the race like George Russell. So his seat is still on the chopping block for me.
But it's less on the chopping block, realistically.
It's
less on the chopping block because his qualifying is getting better, which is funny because his qualifying is the strong aspect of his game, and he's improving that. He does need to improve the race. However, realistically, it will come. But
Sam, go on your point. Bottas will utterly annihilate him if Giovinazzi is picked.
Bottas would,
and I would class Bottas as a very solid second driver / wingman role. And if you get him beaten by a driver from Mercedes that was the second driver comfortably, and it will, I don't know how many races will be next season. It will be 20. I say it's 23-0 qualifying and race.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. 20 and 0s over the top. However, if Porsche came into the seat, Bottas would definitely beat them. If Schumacher came into the seat, Bottas would definitely beat them. And if, I don't know, Ailot or Guan Yu Zhou or anyone came into the seat, Bottas would annihilate them if they're a rookie or like 1 year in the sport. So it depends whoever's, but I don't think Giovinazzi...
Your argument to that is you're putting rookies. Giovinazzi's, I think, came in the sport 3 years ago. He's done absolutely nothing.
He's improving. We'll see. End of the season.
He started out qualifying Kimi Räikkönen, who's 41.
End of the season, we'll see. End of the season, we'll see. But he's improving and he's showing positive signs. Josh, tell me what you think.
There's just not much to say, really. I think he's shown some signs of his racecraft in the sprint qualifying, because I think he gained like a position or two from that as well. So he definitely shows that he has the ability. He just needs to be more consistent and just prove to everyone what he can do. But I agree that with both of you, really, that his qualifying is amazing, but he just lacks it on the Sundays. But yeah, you two have pretty much covered it all with the rest of it and your little rant, so we can move on to Haas, who we've probably spoken about too much already. But yeah, who knows? Who cares?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Do we need to talk about Haas realistically? I mean, Joe's phone's going off. Josh's dog's been barking.
I do.
It's a great podcast. This
podcast has been an absolute shambles, but it's been excellent in terms of the fact that comedy value. I mean, Joe is just completely is just looking for his phone completely.
I'm back.
we're not on. You know what? We're not talking about Haas. We've ranted about them enough. You know our opinions if you watch this podcast about Haas and how they're absolutely rubbish, and the only person that Haas should stay in the sport is Günther Steiner. But so let's move on to driver of the day, because I have a feeling that there's a few obvious picks here. So guys, who are your driver of the days?
I unfortunately couldn't pick the McLaren driver because Joe already beat me to it. But I went with Bottas because it's obvious he's climbed 16 places from where he started on the grid, which is just incredible. Even though he's in a Mercedes, it's still difficult to do that. And he drove so well. He was probably the best driver over the whole weekend because he got pole. Pole was officially from the sprint race, but he got pole from the Friday and then the win in the sprint race and not getting pole because of the his penalty. But coming back to at least get a podium, which is what he aimed for, it's a great achievement and just shows how good he actually is and why he should be in the sport and why the pressure off of being a Mercedes driver has shown that that's why they chose him in the first place, to be Hamilton's second driver. But it's just unfortunately didn't work out for him. But yeah, today he just showed his ability and why he should stay in the sport.
Ricciardo, because he won for McLaren.
Wow. For once, Joe has kept it short and sweet. That's unreal. Two great picks, to be fair. Ricciardo definitely deserved one of you to mention him, and so did Bottas. So I've been stuck with, I didn't get my prediction, my driver of the day in before these two, so I had to pick for the rest. However, there were still some good drives. I'm going to give it to Mr. Mercedes for that season, George Russell, 14th tonight. Solid drive. Bear in mind, the Williams were really struggling this weekend. Like in qualifying and sprint race, they were really struggling. As I said earlier, it was such a crazy race that people forgot how well he did. And George Russell 100% deserves that recognition. So that's why he's my driver of the day. I also want to shout out Latifi, who did really well. Safety car was the only reason he didn't get points, which is so unlucky because the Williams was never going to compete with the Alpine pace, unfortunately. And he's a driver I've actually backed for a few weeks now because I'm getting the feeling of Latifi. I like it. He's gonna be the Hamilton replacement. Trust me. But I also want to shout out Stroll as well, who 9th to 7th had a good race, even though he did have get a little warning after the race, but it's fine because he didn't get a grid penalty. Anyway, guys, we've reached the end of the podcast.
What a pod.
It was long, but if you stay to the end, which is most likely only going to be me who does.
That's sad.
Thank you for staying with us. It's been a wild ride, but that sums up the race on Sunday. You had collisions between the front two. You had drama between the back two. You had everything in between.
It's like Mazepin.
Yeah, Nikita Mazepin being an idiot. Next race is the Russian Grand Prix, Sochi. 2 weeks. It's not another race. Oh, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not another consecutive race. It's not next week. It's the week after. After 3 consecutive races, we now have a little break before the race in Sochi, which will probably be pretty boring because it's a rubbish track. But we're going to keep the energy high, despite us being really tired. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for interacting with our content. I'm very sorry for the interruptions of Josh's dog, Joe's phone, but it keeps it interesting. We're all human. We all have dogs. Joe, do you have a dog?
No, I just had an annoying person joining me.
Well, Joe's going to buy a dog and we'll do a podcast with all 3 dogs and it's going to be great. There'll be lots of barking.
Can I steal
it? It's 100% happening, but that's going to wrap it up because you've been with us long enough. Thank you for watching, listening, like, subscribe, download, whatever you need to do. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for a preview. Thank you, guys.